Delegate of Bulgaria.
Present.
Delegate of Canada. Brazil, your presence has been noted. Delegate of China.
Delegate of China is present and voting.
Delegate of Congo.
Present and voting.
Delegate of Denmark.
Present.
Delegate of Finland. Delegate of France is not here. Delegate of Germany.
Here.
Delegate of India.
Present and voting.
Delegate of Indonesia. I can see you in the meeting. I'll mark you present. Delegate of Iran. Delegate of Italy.
Present.
Delegate of Japan. Delegate of Japan is not here, I guess. Delegate of Korea.
Present.
Delegate of Malaysia.
Taken.
Mexico.
Present.
Delegate of Netherlands. Delegate of Norway. Delegate of Pakistan.
Ma'am, delegate of Pakistan is present. She will join shortly. She's facing some technical issues.
All right. Delegate of Philippines.
Present.
Delegate of Qatar.
The delegate of Qatar is present and voting.
Delegate of Russia. Is the delegate of Russia in the meeting?
Yes, we're in the meeting.
All right, sorry. Delegate of Saudi Arabia.
Present.
Delegate of Slovenia.
Present.
Delegate of Sri Lanka. Delegate of Syria.
Present.
Delegate of Thailand.
Present and voting, Your Honor.
Delegate of Turkey. Delegate of Ukraine.
Present.
Yes, I am present.
Yes, noted delegate. Delegate of Ukraine.
I am here.
Delegate of, thank you. Delegate of United Arab Emirates.
Present and voting.
Delegate of UK.
Okay.
Delegate, all right, noted. Delegate of United States of America.
Present.
Delegate of Vietnam.
Present and voting.
Delegate of Zimbabwe. And the delegate of noted. And the delegate of Australia.
Present.
All right. We are done with the roll call here. Mahir, over to you.
Yes, we'll be taking the rest over JSLs first. So, um, first up is the delegate of Australia. Is the delegate of Australia present?
Present. Yes.
Yes, delegate, you have the floor.
Chairman and delegates, a pleasant afternoon. This delegate of Australia believes that preparation is a vital and mitigating health outbreaks such as pandemics and epidemics. A multifaceted approach must be of high priority in crafting the preparedness protocols of the countries. This means that all aspects of our society are accounted for to yield maximized results. For example, when the COVID-19 happened, all were prohibited from going out and encouraged to do home quarantine. As a result, the economic and social activities were compromised, and a noticeable increase of diagnosed cases of anxiety and depression was reported. This delegate of Australia believes not only in preparedness of protocols, but also the preparedness of each country in providing economic and social support in the micro-scale level to ensure everyone's well-being during these emergencies. While this delegate acknowledges its advantageous position in terms of resources, it is my intention to propose a mechanism that allows this committee to highly consider not just the economic aspect but also the social and mental being of our people. Let us not allow this pandemic create a shaded, silent endemic that possesses long-term ill that can last even after we step into the new normal age. I am calling everyone's cooperation in this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Yes, delegate of Malaysia.
Sorry, I accidentally
Kini kisagding
raised my hand.
Delegate, you are not audible. Do you have a point? We'll be taking one POI. So, are there any points on the floor? Yes, delegate of Philippines.
Yes, delegate of Australia. What policies of Australia can other countries replicate?
The Australian government must balance between the economic and social and mental support. Thank you.
Thank you, delegates. We'll be taking the next speaker, which is the delegate of Canada present in the meeting?
Yes.
Yes, delegate, you have the floor.
We past have no regrets, said Dr. Matt Ryan, epidemiologist at WHO, in March 2020. Good evening, delegates of the House and Chairperson. The outbreak of COVID-19 is surely a significant challenge for the entire world. The delegate of Canada believes that the discussion on the agenda is really needed to help countries to share and provide a plan for the delivery of healthcare to any future outbreaks. The delegate is more than honored to discuss the agenda at hand today. The delegate would like to share Canada's rapid response to prepare itself for a similar outbreak that may arise. One of them is that the government of Canada is working closely with provinces and territories to ensure that all necessary and appropriate support are available for the Canadian community. Canada also has made hard efforts to increase the public awareness and understanding of the disease by providing timely, pen-accessible information to explain what to do if they develop symptoms and address any misinformation. In addition, to help advance research and vaccine development, Canada is participating in the international collaboration coordinated by WHO and a coalition for epidemic preparedness innovations. The delegate would like to suggest that countries can develop printable and online infographics resources in many languages on topics such as hand washing and how to isolate so that the citizens of the nation can have a better understanding and take steps to protect themselves and their families. The delegate also thinks that it would be helpful if countries prepare detailed and inline guidance for each sector. This will help a person to actually understand and know what steps and measurements they need to take in facing any upcoming outbreak. The delegate of Canada strongly supports any successful strategies made by the international community to curb the spread of the disease. Together, we are working to turn significant findings and research into actions that will save lives across the world. If the cost of immigrant families in countries that may not have English or country's language as their mother tongue.
Thank you, Delegate. Any points on the floor? We'll take Delegate of Denmark, followed by Delegate of China. And delegates, please rename yourself. Yes, Delegate.
Yes, as a point of information, considering the sectors that were affected worldwide by COVID-19, which one has been the most affected in Canada?
Delegate, can you repeat your question?
Yes. Considering the sectors that were affected worldwide by COVID-19, which one has been the most affected in Canada?
Delegate of Canada, would you like to answer that?
Yes. Thank you, Delegate of Denmark. So the Delegate of Canada believes that the most effective measures for country is still the citizens need to stay updated to the COVID-19 vaccines, provide improving ventilations, and always getting tested for COVID-19 if they have symptoms.
Thank you, Delegate. Our next speaker is Delegate of Nepal.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Actually, I'm delegate of Sri Lanka, and I just want to say that I'm present and voting. I couldn't connect because of a network problem before.
Okay, Delegate. We've marked your presence, Delegate. But please rename yourself.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, yes.
Delegate of Nepal, you have the floor. Delegate of Nepal.
I'm the delegate of Nepal.
Yes, Delegate. Would you like to give your GSL? I think we'll move on with the next speaker. Next up is delegate of Ukraine.
Yes,
Yes, delegate, you have the floor.
of course. So the healthcare appointed as the main spending unit to prevent the spread of infection disease COVID-19, maintain a safe distance from other people. Wear a mask in public, especially in closed space or when physical distancing is not possible. Chase open the well-lit space instead of a closed house. Open a window if you are in closed space. Um, it's responsible for providing leadership of global health matters, shaping the health matters, agenda setting norms and standards, articulating evidence-based policy option, providing technical support to countries, and monitoring and assessing health this is it.
Thank you, delegate. Are there any points on the floor? Yes, delegate of Sri Lanka. Delegate of Sri Lanka. Delegate, would you like to ask a question? We'll take the delegate of USA.
Thank you for your recognition. Can the delegation of Ukraine explain how the Russian-Ukrainian conflict affected the COVID-19 vaccination process and dealing with COVID-19?
Can you say one more question? A question?
Of course, can the delegation of Ukraine explain how the Russian-Ukrainian conflict affected the COVID-19 vaccination process and the dealing with COVID-19?
The Ukraine has the first vaccinated country about the Russian, and
Ukraine, right? She's from Ukraine, the girl here.
I don't know. I don't have as for explain so much for this question.
Delegate, would you like to answer the question?
I can't. So.
Non posso. Would you like to answer the question, delegate? I can't.
What is it, the Fifth Amendment?
I can't.
No, ma dove stai? Chi è che non ha risposto? A quale?
There. Who?
We'll move on with the next speaker. Next up is the delegate of UAE.
Yes, thanks for the recognition. The delegate of UAE feels the urgency of discussing this issue after an unexpected COVID-19 breakout. The UAE was one of the first countries to reach out and support global humanitarian initiatives when COVID broke out. The entire world witnessed loss of life and employment, so we must be ready if another pandemic comes. The nations would like to encourage their citizens to consume immunity-rich foods, because what COVID-19 showed was that people were dying when they had unhealthy lifestyle. WHO works worldwide to promote health, keep the world safe. and serve the vulnerable. So, WHO should even work more on the pandemics. Done.
Thank you, Delegate. We'll take one POI. Are there any points on the floor? We'll take the delegate of Saudi Arabia.
Is what actions did the United Arab Emirates take in order to control the spread of the virus?
On March 20, UAE had been on lockdown for 2 months, and that was before the first 1,000 cases were confirmed. Now it showed that total vaccinations are 24 million, total deaths are 2,000, and active cases are 18,000. So this is what UAE did. The lockdown had had an effect on the cases.
Thank you, Delegate. Next up is the delegate of United Kingdom.
The delegate of the United Kingdom feels to express his concern about the trend of the pandemic and considers it necessary to implement prevention and safety protocols in the various areas: internal railway or airport movements, health facilities, facilities for the elders, workplace, public and private schools, university, and other indoor public places. In the management of the pandemic, our position has generally been to avoid restrictions as much as possible, even though in the first wave we had at one point to adjust to the protocols applied in the other Western countries because of the exponential increase in the number of deaths. Although the pandemic has persisted since 2020, we have noticed some diversity in variant dangerousness, which for the moment drops as the variant changes. Day by day, monitoring is the basis for not losing track of infection and mortality trends. We need to rigidly apply the protocols on the agenda inside our country. Then the fact that we are on an island and outside Europe will help us limit the arrival of contagion from abroad. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Are there any points on the floor? We'll take a delegate of Russia, then followed by delegate of Republic of Congo.
Okay, delegates of United Kingdom mentioned about different preparedness protocols. Can you name some of them to show us how your country will prepare for unfortunate pandemic situation?
Internal railway or airport movements, health facilities, facility for the elders, workplace, public schools and private schools, university, other indoor public places. Can you wait a moment?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Next up is the delegate of United States of America.
Thank you for your recognition. Honorable Chairboard and fellow delegates, as delegation of United States, we are honored to represent our country in this prestigious meeting. When COVID-19 broke out, all of the world was unprepared for a massive pandemic like COVID-19. With COVID-19, all of the world started to prepare for further pandemics and epidemics. And also all states tried to deal with COVID-19 pandemic. As United States, we declared curfews and started homeschooling for students. Also, we immediately started the vaccination research. Also, we create massive aid funds for both international community and our people. But we are really concerned about a new possible pandemic or epidemic. We would like to also state that all delegations offering protocols or improvement of health facilities or in providing online education chance to all children across the world. But no one, not any delegation is mentioning how to make these offers real. We believe that we should must speak about how to make these offers real, not what to make. As delegation, we would like to mention how to make these offers real. As we mentioned previously, we have got the 8 programs called US Aid. We would like to open US hospitals across the world to create an example hospital structure in developing countries. We are ready to invest in this project until $1 billion. We added $30 million for online education in Tanzania and lots of developing country. We will also expand our online education aids with investing $50 million more. We are waiting for further investments of other countries for our health and education aids. Also, we think that possible protocols must include points about inhibition of bioweapons and how to avoid educational, economic, and social aspects of further pandemics or epidemics. We believe that we will deal with all further pandemics as an international community. Finally, we would like to point out the one thing that we mentioned when we are asking a question to the delegation of China. They requested at least one proof that for unnaturalness of COVID-19, and here is the proof. Normally, all the viruses have got an ancestor to take DNA, but interestingly, there is not ancestor of COVID-19. Also, we can't reach the data of the laboratories in Wuhan. So we are really concerned about the unnaturalness of COVID-19, and we are waiting for the official explanation from the delegation of China. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Delegate. Are there any points on the floor? We'll take Delegate of China, followed by Delegate of Russia.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to ask the delegate of China, that the delegate of USA, that he has mentioned some of the articles, but I wanted to say that if China created the virus, so was China that much what we can say unprofessional that it left the virus
Delegate,
in Wuhan, its in
Delegate,
country?
you cannot make a statement during a question. You just ask your question directly to USA. Okay?
Yes. So yes.
Get my point?
So I was just wanted to ask the delegate of USA that if China made the virus, so it should have spread the virus in the USA, because we have rivalries. Everyone knows that. So why China was the first one to be infected? And secondly, the Feng Duozhe, president of China Vaccine Industry Association, told the Global Times that the large research pipeline provides a chance for China to study mature vaccine technology, including mRNA technology and recombinant vaccine technology, and apply this knowledge to a possible future infectious disease more severe than pandemic. So how is this possible that China create a virus and just say to the media that we are creating vaccines to cure the same thing?
We accept the question.
Delegate, Delegate of China, what was your question? Just the question.
Okay, so basically the question was that the delegate of USA said that there are some proofs and has mentioned. So the delegate of China would just wanted to ask that if China really made the virus, then why didn't China spread it through the USA? Why wasn't the USA the first one to be affected? Because China and USA has some issues, and we all know that. Why China was the one to face the risk of the virus? And secondly, and the second question
That's
that
it, Delegate.
China.
That's it. Yes, Delegate of USA.
Okay, for why the China was the first one that affected country, because the virus is produced in the in a laboratory in Wuhan, and then we believe that China government released the virus, and we we are waiting for the further decision of International Court of Justice on the topic. We start a court against the China and Chinese government in International Court of Justice. So we are waiting for their further decision, and we believe that China government don't care about their people that much, and they can even uh, tolerate the death of their people for money and for beating their rivals.
Okay, delegate. Yes, delegate of Russia. You have the floor.
There is an opinion that not China created this virus, but America did it. I didn't believe in it. I think that this virus was natural. So my question is, how can delegates from the USA can prove this opinion that the USA created this virus?
As the United States, we release all data in our biological laboratories, and we release all data in our that we made what in our laboratories, but we cannot reach data in Chinese laboratories. So we think that China produced that. But if the Russian government wants to review things that we made in a biological laboratories, they can review, because we haven't got any secret things in our laboratories that we conduct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is the delegate of Nepal present in the meeting?
Yes, sir.
Delegate, would you like to give your GSL?
Yes.
Okay, delegate, you have the floor.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Chair and fellow delegates. The first death of COVID-19 in Nepal was a 29-year-old pregnant woman, a future destroyed by an unforeseen outbreak. Up until 4 November 2022, the COVID-19 virus has killed over 6.6 people worldwide. In spite of the wholly modern technology and medicine, all countries appear so unprepared, and hence the debilitating effect of this pandemic has left countries weakened. With this in mind, the delegates of Nepal feel the urgency to discuss this topic in order to prepare the world for other pandemics that may arise in the future. The delegates of Nepal would like to share the measurement taken by Nepal to further prepare the country for future pandemics at the Philippines. One such strategy was that the requirement of healthcare workers and other human resources must be planned and financed according to a long-term vision. The delegates also suggest countries identify and designate isolation and treatment facilities, including peripheral critical care and ambulances per geography based on access, population density, and service capacity through effective public-private partnership arrangement. The delegate of Nepal also encouraged all countries to establish toll-free 4-digit call centers with linkage to free text and app-based cell phone reporting to enable enhanced real-time surveillance, case detection, and contact follow-up. It is clear as a bell, the risk of new pandemics is higher than before. Without protocol and thoroughgoing preparedness, the world will be centimeters to its doom. To put it bluntly, no one is safe until action are being made, and the sooner the world realizes this, the later I end my speech.
Thank you, delegate. Are there any points on the floor? Okay, we'll take the delegate of Saudi Arabia, followed by the delegate of Thailand.
How has the COVID-19 pandemic affected health facilities in Nepal?
Thank you, delegate of Saudi Arabia. As we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic has led to a dramatic loss of human life worldwide and present an unprecedented challenge to public health, the food system, and the world. Millions of enterprises face an existential threat. Nearly half of the world's 3.3 billion global workforce are at risk of losing their livelihoods. For most, no income means no food, or at best, less food and less nutritious food. Many countries had underestimated both the short and long-term impacts of border closure. The migrant workers are particularly vulnerable in this case. The decision of the government to lock down the country without sufficient preparation pushed daily wage laborers in urban areas to lose their job and hence were trapped without food or money. Ultimately, both migrant workers and daily wage laborers started walking the long way home due to the economic crisis. This is exactly the reason as why the delegate of Nepal believes in thorough preparation in facing a pandemic, because your best teacher will be your last mistake. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate of Thailand.
For a point of information, Your Honor.
Yes, Delegate.
So thank you for the recognition, Your Honor. So delegate of Nepal, delegate of Thailand would like to know what's the delegate's opinion, simply the opinion about the students, the youth who went under a huge negative impact on mental health like stress and depression during the COVID-19 pandemic. What's the delegate's opinion about it?
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question?
Yes, of course. Yeah. So what's the delegate's opinion about the youth, about the students who went under a huge mental stress and negative impact of mental health during the COVID-19 outbreak? Delegate's opinion.
In my opinion, the schools and universities in Nepal have been temporarily closed for nearly 2 months now. As of the second week of May 2022, UNESCO 2022 has estimated that nearly 9 million students in Nepal are affected due to school or university closure in response to the pandemic.
Thank you, delegates. Now we have the delegate of Vietnam.
Am I audible?
Yes, delegate.
Yes. Honorable Head Table and fellow delegates, there have been over 632 million reported cases of infection and a death toll of over 15 million since the beginning of COVID-19 pandemic back in the 2019 to date, which the population has managed to control but not eradicate it. The delegation of Vietnam feels that now that the entire world has faced the COVID-19 pandemic head on with so many casualties along the way and have realized many other financial and social repercussions still being faced by countries across the world today. It is of utmost importance to ensure that the populace is ready to combat the next time such a catastrophic event does not take root and be prepared to nip it right in the bud. To do this, delegation of Vietnam proposes that the population be reminded regularly of good practices and good habits which had been followed during the pandemic and its aftermath, such as sanitizing, washing hands regularly, and keep up with general hygiene practices to be followed, which were previously taken as granted. The use of the SDG 3 will be a valuable guideline for preparation for the next time, as well and should be consulted upon. While the delegation also feels the need that the early detection and reporting of cases would be important, the suggestion put forth is that each country bring in a program domestically to gather medical data and new findings of such suspected epidemic symptoms and compile and report these findings in the most efficient way possible, while obviously isolating the spread to the best of their abilities. The delegate would like to come to the end and thank you all.
Thank you, delegate. Next, we have the delegate of Zimbabwe.
Hello?
Yes, delegate.
Am I audible?
Yes, delegate, you are.
Thank you.
Honorable Chairman and delegates, I am pleased with this opportunity to talk about establishing preparedness protocols for epidemics and pandemics. This delegate of Zimbabwe supports the formation of protocols that will help each country to cope in a public health emergency. As we all know, Zimbabwe has been affected by several health outbreaks such as malaria, cholera, and cardiovascular diseases. So, when the COVID-19 pandemic came, it was an automatic response of Zimbabwe to implement an 8-pillar strategy that embodies policies and restrictions to avoid transmission of the virus. This delegate of Zimbabwe believes in a proactive approach towards pandemic and epidemics. Given the unfortunate circumstances of the political and economic climate of the country, the people of Zimbabwe were able to delay the transmission of the virus. However, with limited resources, there is an increase of confirmed cases. This delegate of Zimbabwe believes that all countries have an already established protocol to public health emergencies. However, there is a gap when it comes to global health standards that can be uniformly implemented across countries regardless of resources and economic capabilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegates will now be looking for motions to move into moderated caucuses. So, are there any points and motions on the floor? We'll take delegate of Brazil, followed by delegate of Australia.
Okay. Motion to discuss about the impact of the global lockdown on the worldwide economy.
Delegate, there's a proper format. I would like that all the delegates please note it down, and then we shall again look out for motions. So I'll just dictate what is to be said. Just please note it down. The delegate of whichever country you are representing, for example, the delegate of India would like to raise a motion for the topic, whichever topic you want to choose, for the total time being 20 minutes or 15 minutes, whichever is your preference, and each speaker's time being 60 seconds. All right.
Okay. Can I give my motion again?
Delegates, I'll be looking for motions again. Just give me a second. All those who want to raise a motion, please, you can raise your hand in the Teams function. So I'll take delegate of Brazil, followed by delegate of USA, followed by delegate of UAE.
The delegate of Brazil offers to discuss about the topic of impact of the global lockdown on the worldwide economy, total time being 15 minutes and individual speaking time being 60 seconds.
Okay, delegate. Delegate, can you please repeat your topic? Global lockdown on? Impact of global lockdown on?
Impact of the global lockdown on the worldwide economy.
Okay, delegate. Next up was delegate of USA.
Delegate of United States of America would like to raise a motion for how to provide needed sources for dealing with COVID-19 and further pandemics or epidemics.
Okay, delegate. Delegate of UAE.
Delegate of UAE would like to raise a motion for the moderated caucus for the topic precautionary and safety measures for the prevention of pandemic in future. Total time 50 minutes. Each speaker's time 60 seconds.
Okay, delegate. First, we shall vote upon the motion raised by delegate of Brazil. So, the motion raised by delegate of Brazil was impact of global lockdown on worldwide economy. All those in favor of the motion? Those in favor, please raise your hand using the Teams function. All those in favor? Krishi, can you please note it down, the number of delegates? All those against? Delegates, you have to vote.
This is against, no?
Yes, this is against. I'll ask again. You can lower down your hands. All those in favor? All those against? Delegates, you are not voting. Delegates, we need a simple majority of at least 17 people to. Okay. Okay, this motion fails. We'll now vote upon the motion raised by delegate of USA. So all those in favor?
Mahir, could you please repeat the motion so that the delegates who might not have heard it before can
Right.
vote?
The delegate of USA raised a motion for the topic how to provide needed resources of funds for dealing with epidemics or pandemics. Right? All those in favor? Those against? Delegates, you all need to vote. There are some delegates who are not even responding. You need to be active. Okay, this motion fails. Now we'll vote upon the motion raised by delegate of UAE. The motion raised by the delegate of UAE was for the topic precautionary and safety measures for dealing with the pandemic. So all those in favor? Those against? With this motion pass, now we shall move into the moderated caucus on the topic precautionary and safety measures for dealing with pandemics or epidemics. So delegates who want to speak in this moderated caucus, please raise your hand. Delegate of UAE, would you like to be the first speaker or the last speaker?
First speaker.
Okay, delegate.
Thanks for the recognition. The delegate of UAE likes
Delegate,
to
just
share.
wait a second. Those who would like to speak in this monitored caucus, the countries' name are as follows: UAE, India, Brazil, Philippines, Argentina, Denmark, USA, China, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Russia, Republic of Congo, Thailand, Australia, and Zimbabwe. Okay, there's delegate of Pakistan also. Yes, delegate of UAE, you have the floor.
The delegate of UAE likes to share some precautionary and safety measures for the prevention of pandemic in future. First, be prepared. What COVID showed is that people are dying at risk, and people were obese at the time. Second, don't. The second is responding quickly. When a new virus emerges, there is a very less chance of being ready. So you have to uh, speak to the sorry.
Delegate, you can take your time. No need to worry. Delegate, would you like to be the last speaker? Delegate. Okay, we'll move on with the next speaker, which is delegate of India.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you, the Executive Board, for recognition. So there are two types of preventive measures. One kind of preventive measure is that the measures which should be taken by the government to prevent the pandemic from occurring in the first place. And the second type of measures are that when the outbreak is going on, what prevention should people make? But the preventive measures on which I'm going to talk about is that should be taken by the government. So climate change plays a really big role in our daily life, but it can also have a huge role in spreading of future viruses and pandemics. Researchers found that Pseudomonas bacteria, one of the predominant bacteria groups in the Antarctic Peninsula, were found. They are not pathogenic, but are a source of resistant genes, which cannot be stopped by common disinfectants. These type of viruses and bacteria lie deep under the ice sheets and have the potential of becoming a future pandemic if not taken care of. The solution to control climate change is really simple. Greenhouse gas emissions should be controlled. This is a very important aspect of climate change, and preventing of prevention of climate change can also prevent many future pandemics from occurring. Deforestation should also be limited there should be a limit on cutting of trees, and also government should launch programs for afforestation, because in some countries already the forest level has been really low, so more trees need to be planted in order for the perfect oxygen levels and less degree of climate change. So these all changes I would like to suggest that the government should take, and the government should launch programs for planting of trees so that climate change is prevented, and in an indirect way, future pandemics are also prevented. That's all I need. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Khushi, can you recognize the next speaker?
The next speaker is the Speaker of Brazil.
Honorable Chair, fellow delegates, we are going to mention some precautions and safety measures to prevent future pandemics. The delegation of Brazil suggests the countries to draw a comparison of strategies which worked out and those did not work out during the recent pandemic, so that the same can be considered in case of upcoming dangers. We suggest this to the countries because if we learn from our experiences, we can move on and improve our healthcare systems, our precautions and safety measures in general to prevent some worse disasters in the future. Some other solutions delegate would like to suggest are strengthening international health regulations and institutions. The nations should encourage their citizens to consume immunity-rich food items and have a balanced diet, because as we all know, the reason that the COVID-19 pandemic occurred is because of the bats in the markets in the China. So consuming immunity-rich food items and having a balanced diet is really important. And furthermore, the countries that successfully responded to the pandemic should be identified, and those strategies could be followed by other countries too. As we said before, as we said previously in our speech, learning from our mistakes and our corrects is really important to move on and making our systems better. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate.
Thank you, Delegate. Next up is the speaker, the Delegate of Philippines.
Thank you for the recognition. The delegate of, as a representative from the Philippines, we believe that planning prevention must be in place, as ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. As the global community face variety of medical emergencies, numerous strategies have been developed to cope with these challenges. The COVID-19 pandemic taught us lesson about the importance of risk assessment. It is vital that we develop a simple surveillance system that will aid communities to monitor the local epidemiology. It is also strongly suggested that this system will facilitate global readiness and efficient international collaboration of policies and resources. With the help of this monitoring system, the information about this potential health outbreak will result to uniform and scientific declaration and responses. This is to bridge the gap that happened during the COVID-19, where declaration and responses were paced differently, especially to developing and energy economies. In short, a technology-based risk assessment mechanism is highly needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegates, do you need some time to prepare for this moderate caucus? You can raise your hand. Okay, since there are not many delegates, we'll move on with the moderate caucus. I would just like to give you some insight on this. See, if we are talking about preparedness, the topic was basically precautionary and safety measures, right? So, see, look into this. How does a pandemic happen? When there's an outbreak, right? And we'll view it in a slightly different manner. If we stop a pandemic, if we can stop a pandemic, we can definitely stop an outbreak. Then there are many pillars to that. For example, investment, then operation. You need investment to, establish those precautionary measures, safety measures. We have to build those healthcare facilities. So, look into that, and then you can deliver your speech. All right. For the time being, the next speaker is delegate of Argentina.
Thank you, Chair, for the recognition. So, talking about this topic, under this, the delegate of Argentina identifies that the official statement made by the UN itself, which contains two perspectives. So the first one being that the necessity of a multi-sectoral representative approach, and the second one being following and modifying the already present frameworks. So firstly, the necessity of a multi-sectoral representative approach to create an effective set of preparedness protocols for future pandemics should be followed. For example, the COVID-19 or the Ebola pandemic are health-related issues, right? But from what we've experienced in the past 2 years, we've understood that a health problem could result in major social, economic, political problems. So appointing a committee consisting of experts from different sectors, such as businessmen, medical consultants, professors, or like those kind of people, to forecast possible situations and solutions for future pandemic situations is more effective. For example, applauding Sri Lanka on the excellent management of the first wave of the COVID-19 within 2019 and 2020, we saw that they conjoined both military services and healthcare systems to produce a brilliant outcome of quarantine facilities, over 50 PCR centers, and effective contact tracing. So the delegate highlights that all nations should abide by the prepared frameworks, such as Pandemic Influenza Preparedness Framework, the Global Strategy for Influenza 2018-2030 Agreement. So also for this, the delegate suggests that the implementation of a regulatory body that enforces policy making and enacting the present policies regarding prevention of pandemics in the future is very necessary. So all these could run under the WHO, which could, monitor the effectiveness and monitor what's better and what's good for the future would be the best, right? So thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Next up is delegate of Denmark.
The delegate of Denmark feels that precautionary and safety measures for the prevention of pandemic in the future plays a significant role in preparing the population and the medical system for future pandemics and eventually in avoiding their outbreak. Being unprepared for the COVID-19 pandemic, we have realized the importance of the preventive measures for the avoidance of transforming an epidemic in a pandemic. The delegate feels that one measure that could reduce the chances of the outbreaks of future pandemics would be preparedness by taking COVID-19 as a serious lesson from which citizens could learn manners in which they can protect both themselves and others. In this regard, governments could decide on a pandemic plan by analyzing, testing, and writing the measures that work throughout this pandemic and which not, and to make this document accessible to all people by implementing it in schools. The delegate feels that precautionary and safety measures for the prevention of future pandemics have the potential to determine change of the way in which the population consider this disaster and in which they would react in case of a future epidemic.
Thank you, delegate. Next up is delegate of USA.
Thank you for your recognition. We believe that safety measures is the fundamentals of the dealing with the pandemic. In the era of COVID-19, safety measures must include curfews and sealing the borders, but these safety measures harms the international trade and economical structure of the country. Also, curfews nearly end the social life of people and harms education. So we are not supporting curfews and sealing the borders since they harm economical education and social life. We believe that for further pandemics, most important step to prepare, raise the awareness in the public and we should raise the awareness for the public to how to protect us from virus, of how to protect us in an era of epidemic or pandemic. We think that for dealing pandemic, states need to make operational and strategical plans. We strongly support the idea of delegation of Brazil. We learn from our mistakes and we gain experience. We should make operational plans, and while we are creating these operational plans, we should take the successful plans into consideration to form a better operational plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Next up is Delegate of China.
Thank you, Your Honor. The delegate of China would like to say that there are approximately 1.7 million undiscovered viruses in mammals and birds, out of which 827,000 are expected to affect humans, according to report Ecology and Economics for Pandemic Prevention. Over last 100 years, 2 viruses a year spill over from animals to humans. Delegate of China believes that we should initiate awareness programs for people on animal handling, sanitization, and disease transmission. Research centers around the world should be set up to research upon viruses which can cause outbreaks in near future, and on viruses which have caused outbreaks, epidemic, and pandemics in past to ensure that if any mishap occur, they don't mutate and spread again. Government should also aware people upon hygiene, deforestation, and consuming of wildlife to ensure that the story of COVID-19 doesn't repeat itself again. And China is working on this recently. Secondly, there should be a global ban or on national and international trade of high-risk species like primates, bats, and pangolins. And the most important thing that we all must work together instead of pointing fingers at each other or play blame game. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Delegate. Next up is Delegate of Saudi Arabia.
Armed with the knowledge gained from the recent pandemic, COVID-19, we can successfully construct a strategy to reduce the adverse effects caused by the pandemics. As mentioned before, the main focus should be on the effects of pandemic protocols in developing economies. As it has been recorded from the recent pandemic, some good measures that have worked can be implemented again, like social distancing, wearing face masks, frequent sanitizations, lockdowns. These measures are proven to be effective, but there are some actions that were taken which negatively affected the world, not health-wise but economically. Halting imports and exports drastically slowed down trade and harmed economies and jobs that rely on this process. The commercial airplane sector also faced a massive economic slowdown. The region which felt the most effects of this was sub-Saharan Africa, where the flow of foods and other goods was disrupted, which resulted consequences on the cost of living, health, and nutrition. In the future, a more financially safe alternative can be performed in which our health is not compromised. The best option is to stop the outbreak of the disease before it becomes a pandemic. Strict measures need to be taken immediately in order to stop the spread of the virus. All people in the general area of the outbreak must be isolated. The belongings of all the affected people shall be incinerated to stop the spread. The World Health Organization conducts investigations into unknown sicknesses around the world in order to spot an outbreak before it successfully spreads around the world. The mutation of viruses and other microorganisms is inevitable, and all we can do is spot them before it's too late.
Thank you, Delegate. Next up is Delegate of Qatar. Delegate of Qatar. We'll move on with the next speaker, which is Delegate of Russia.
Okay, hello everyone. Well, about precautionary and safety measures for the prevention of the pandemic, I should say that they can be divided in 2 parts. The first part is measures which should be taken all over the world And then in the second part is measures that should be taken in each country. Well, as pandemic situation at first suffers economic and social sphere, every country should be ready to difficulties in trade, because closing borders and lockdown all over the world is an integral part of the pandemic situation. To avoid such problems, countries should be ready to establish special trade rules focused on pandemic. Then about social sphere, to avoid panic, because all people, because during COVID-19, don't everyone didn't everyone knew what it was, and people didn't know about their future. So we should work to avoid such problems. And about individual measures that should be taken in each country, I think that firstly, its ability to implement lockdown very fast to prevent spread of disease. Then every country should have emergency stock of food and essential supplies to provide free medical masks and so on. Then medical researches should be constant to make vaccine as quickly as it possible. And every government should be ready to transfer people to remote work and save their salary, because it's of course one of the problems of the pandemic. Thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you, delegate. Delegates, one thing, till now, all the delegates have been talking about what should a country do during a pandemic, right? But I personally want you guys to discuss what should be done to prevent such pandemics in future. All right, you're getting my point? Great. Uh, Next up is delegate of Republic of Congo.
Sorry
Thanks
to
for the
interrupt. Give me a second. I just want to request everybody to please try and turn on your cameras. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the recognition. Pandemic preparedness activities take place within the context of national and international priorities, competing activities, and limited resources. Given the fundamental uncertainties surrounding the timing of the next pandemic, steps to ensure the long-term sustainability of pandemic preparedness are crucial and should involve, firstly, uh, in interrogation of pandemic preparedness into national emergency preparedness plan frameworks and activities, use of pandemic preparedness activities to strengthen basic and emergency health related capacities such as primary healthcare system, respiratory disease surveillance, and laboratory diagnostic capacities. Use of preparedness activities to actively build communication channels between sectors and communities, develop or modification of business continuity plans specifically tailored or to pandemic. And lastly, periodic reassessment and updating of current plans based on new developments and information gained from exercises. Through the use of these and other approaches, governments, public health agencies, and others have an opportunity to strengthen preparedness for the next influenza pandemic by building the capacity to address a range of local, national, and international emergencies. And the Democratic Republic of Congo is working on all of these. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. We have delegate of Thailand next.
Yes, so thank you for the opportunity provided, Diona. So, speaking out about preventing of pandemics in future, right? So, wait, am I audible, Diona?
Yes, delegate.
Okay, thank you. So under this theme, the delegate of Thailand would like to actually theme out delegate speech into two categories, like the laboratory procedures with the environment, and the other thing is society and the health as a whole, right? So some other delegates also point out the fact that these most of the pandemics have some sort of connection with the animals, with the animal matter as a whole, right? So accelerating and intensifying surveillance system in both animals and humans has been much more effective in this preventing of pandemics as a whole, right? What do I mean by this? So when considering about the pandemics and epidemics that the human race face under this whole time period, being like we observe much more connection, much more linked information that that most of these pandemics, epidemics have some sort of connection with the animals, with the animal matter, with the animal system as a whole, right? So if we systematically link this information about the animals and humans through a surveillance system, it will much more helpful to identify the pandemics and to prevent these situations in future, right? So if we can strengthen the capacity surveillance network in human, including community, medical, hospital, and laboratory networks, it will be much helpful as a whole. So moving to the other theme, that's society and the health. So if we can set up standard operating procedures for all organizations, like develop the capacity of medical and public health officials and various groups of volunteer to be ready to provide appropriate care, right? So the preparedness has a much more movement on actually preventing of these pandemics and whatnot. So strengthen the readiness and capacity of hospitals and prepare plans for patients care system during pandemics has a much more movement on preventing the negative impact that we can have in a pandemic situation, right? So developing the public health emergency plans and measures, which develop a financial support system for activities considered necessary or urgent, as a much more effective moment when considering about prevention of pandemics as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Next up is Delegate of Australia.
Thank you for the recognition. This delegate of Australia would like to start with an article published on February 4, 2022 in ENE News. Weinstein claimed that the present strategy for combating pandemics overlooks primary prevention and instead relies on diagnosis, treatments, and vaccinations. To create precautionary measures for the future pandemic, it is vital that we identify the cause of this. In a report by United Nations Environmental Program, there is a link between emerging infections, diseases, to the loss of habitat and biodiversity. And the use trade of wildlife, most of the health outbreaks originated from the pathogens of animals. If this is the case, there is a need to strengthen our management when it comes to zoonotic diseases with the help of one health. Governments must build well-governed public and to animal health system, prevent crisis by improving national and international emergency response capabilities, collaboration of sectors, development of disease control program through research, and shifting focus to developing countries and diverse of local diseases. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. We have the Delegate of Zimbabwe next.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Delegate.
Thank, thank you, Chair, for the recognition. The goal of pandemic preparedness protocol is to ensure that the country responds effectively and efficiently during health emergencies. This can only be done when there is a mechanism that ensures proper delivery of healthcare services. First, it is necessary to establish a surveillance response system that monitors epidemiological movements in a community. People should be educated on how to proactively spot an unusual health situation and how to properly communicate with the authorities. Next, people should be aware of the dangers of mishandling, trade, and use of animals. Over the past 100 years, the pandemics stemmed from animal pathogens that are harmful to human bodies. Our country, Zimbabwe, has been afflicted with health outbreaks, and the preset protocol to follow is an essential step in preventing and managing a pandemic. Without these protocols, our people will greatly suffer. To summarize, Proactive implementation of protocols and educating people about the dangers of mishandling trade and use of animals will greatly help the global community for any possible outbreaks in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Next up is Delegate of Pakistan. Is the Delegate of Pakistan present?
Yes, I am present.
Delegate, would you like to speak in this moderated caucus?
Yes, sure. Greetings. As you all know, a sudden outbreak of COVID-19 came, and mostly people were unaware. So the delegate of Pakistan would like to share some precautions to avoid pandemic in future. It only recommended dose for COVID-19 vaccine. Keep a safe and distance from others, especially in closed areas. When indoor, open window possible, wear a mask around those, or if you are one of those who are at high risk of severe illness. Keep hands clean, cover cough and sneeze. Stay home when feeling unwell and see your doctor. Always carry essential for aids, bandage and sanitizer, mask, gloves and Dettol for injury and scratches. Use these precautions and always remember that there is cure for every pandemic and virus besides death. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. We'll recognize a few more speakers. So all those who want to speak in this moderated caucus, please raise your hand.
Respected Chair, actually, I'm sorry, I just forgot to mention one point in my speech.
Delegate,
If
you
I
cannot.
can.
No, no,
Oh,
no.
okay. Okay.
If we recognize you again, you can speak in your speech. We'll recognize Delegate of Qatar. Are there any more speakers?
Can a delegation who speak before can speak again?
Yes, Delegate, you can. Okay, we'll recognize Delegate of Qatar, followed by Delegate of Argentina, Brazil, and USA. That's it. Delegate of Qatar, you have the floor.
Thank you very much for the recognition. Greetings, honorable chairs and fellow delegates. So what Delegate of Qatar suggests is that the thing that must be done to avoid future pandemics is to build good health infrastructure. Good health infrastructure will prevent many diseases from spreading. One of the best example is the outbreak of cholera, one of the longest running pandemic in history. So according to the World Health Organization, the best way to prevent cholera and other waterborne diseases is by investing in and maintaining water, sanitation, and hygiene facilities throughout the community. Qatar also encourages its innovations ecosystem, consisting of tech startup to play a big role. Medi, a startup founded in Qatar, developed a local online appointment booking platform to offer virtual medical services. So it means more people can receive a good medical services. And the other thing that country can do is to make sure its people to live a healthy behavior through education and counseling by health institution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Delegate. Next up is Delegate of Argentina.
Thank you for the recognition, Chair, and thank you so much for proposing this motion. So, first of all, the delegate of Argentina would like to say that according to the World Health Assembly Resolutions 58 and 62.12, quoting, ensuring adequate and equitable distribution of good quality healthcare facilities. So, honorable delegates, not entering any hypothetical situation, but in reality, there are two major reasons for why the necessary humanitarian aid don't actually reach the in-need areas, right? So the first one being the corruption at the higher stages of administration. So under this, moving right onto examples, the US aid announced the debarment of 12 companies and individuals over their participation in corruption scheme affecting humanitarian aid in Syria, and also found that in central Somalia and Afghanistan, corruption was cited as one of the largest barriers in receiving aid. Right. So the second one being having weak metadata, surveillance, and analyzing systems. So not having constant updates and reliable information comes in a huge fault because the providers can't get a solid decision on which region needs which funds and aids, right? So for that, the delegate proposes data retention, which is actually the practice of preserving data for a specific period of time to meet certain regulatory requirements as a solution. And also the creation and maintenance of a digitally accessible and globally accessible data bank, which is fed with global surveillance data in which all nations, at least like most of the nation, can have access so that they can upload and update data systems regarding outbreak management and preparedness protocols is very important. So these actions should also be very transparent and also should be monitored by the WHO. And also delegates understand that since we're in the 21st century, for more accuracy, the delegate proposes the installation of artificial intelligence systems in this, like the process could be done. Because look, delegates, AI and like artificial intelligence might be expensive and not affordable for all nations, but we have so many governmental and non-governmental organizations and even the International Monetary Fund itself providing support for nations worldwide, right? So in short, delegates, the delegate proposes all these solutions to overcome future pandemics and learn from what we've made, like the mistakes we've made within this COVID and so many other pandemics that we've faced as the globe, right? So thank you.
Thank you, Delegate.
Thank you, Delegate. Next up is the Speaker of Brazil.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Chair and fellow delegates, we as the delegation of Brazil believe that establishing preparedness protocols is a key point to prevent future pandemics. And about these preparedness protocols, every country and World Health Organization should work together, and each one of them should take on responsibility, because as we all know, a pandemic affects the whole world, not only, for example, USA, not only Brazil, not only etc. Every country in the World Health Organization should contribute to these preparedness protocols and contribute with their ideas, with their experiences in the previous pandemics, what they are going to offer to these protocols, and they also should contribute with monetary issues. And we as the delegation of Brazil believe that these protocols should cover several fields, such as food security, since this is the way that most diseases and also COVID-19 has firstly spread. Economy is a vital point, and during pandemics, economies of all the countries are getting hard blows. Education, which is also suffering during pandemics, and students cannot get proper education, so we need to improve online education facilities. Tourism, hospitality, sports, leisure, gender equalities, domestic violence, and mental health. Because according to us, these are the most important and vital points that affected the world drastically in the previous pandemic and might affect the world again in case of future pandemics and epidemics. So again, we encourage the House to take on responsibility and contribute to these protocols. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Next up is the Delegate of USA.
Thank you for your recognition. 1 minute. Okay. Yeah, am I audible? Okay. Delegation of Argentina mentioned an artificial. Okay. Delegation of Argentina mentioned an artificial intelligence system for recording the data about the pandemics or epidemics, but we don't think so. It's an effective system compared to its cost. We think that it is so expensive compared to its benefits to the countries. We think that we should provide quarantine units to all hospitals, and we should create example hospital structures to provide minimum standards in every country for every hospital to deal pandemics. We think that in the COVID-19 process, we face with the lack of sources in hospitals and lack of medical care uh, things in the hospitals. So we think that we should provide quarantine units and we should provide medical care to all hospitals across the world. And as we mentioned in our previous speech, we should create an example hospital structure in developing countries, because there is no leading hospitals to show how to manage pandemics in the developing countries. So we think that as the house, we should create example hospital structures in developing countries with the taking into consideration the successful hospital structures in the developed countries. Also, we believe that best safety measure to prevent a pandemic is the local and personal quarantines. In COVID-19 process, national quarantines affected the economical structures and the international trade very badly. Also, national quarantines caused unemployment among the people, but when we implement local and personal quarantines, it only affects a small amount of people or only a few people. Therefore, it doesn't affect everyone in terms of education and social lives. So we believe that best safety measure to implement is the local or the personal quarantines among the people. And we also believe that we create example hospital structures in developing countries in order to lead the hospitals across the developing countries. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Delegate. With this, we come to the end of this moderated caucus session. I would like to now just inform everybody that just like a moderated caucus, there is an unmoderated caucus too. I'm guessing most of you are first timers in this MUN. However, I guess some of you might know about an unmoderated caucus. I'll just explain it. So in an unmoderated caucus, it's more of a informal diplomacy where all the delegates are allowed to discuss directly with each other regarding the topic, the agenda at hand. So I would just like to inform everybody that the next call for motions can include unmoderated caucuses too. If there's any doubt regarding an unmoderated caucus, please you may ask. If not, I'll call for motions now.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Will the House entertain
Yes,
parliamentary inquiry? Because like the delegate of USA mentioned the delegate of Argentina in their speech, and the delegate feels like the House needs a statement about the validity of the statement made by the delegate of USA. If it's possible.
Delegate of Argentina, I think you may use the opportunity in the next moderated caucus to reply to the delegate.
Okay, thank you so
Would
much.
that be fine?
Yeah, that'd be fine. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So I now call for motions. Are there any motions on the floor? All right. Republic of Congo, followed by delegate of India, followed by delegate of China. Delegate of Congo, please go ahead.
The delegate of the delegate of the Democratic Republic of Congo would like to raise a motion to set up an unmoderated caucus for the time being 15 minutes.
All right. Delegate of India.
The delegate of India would like to raise a motion for an unmoderated caucus on the topic of well-being of the people and development of healthcare facilities for a total time of 15 minutes and individual time of 60 seconds.
Delegate, you proposed an unmoderated caucus, right?
Yes.
So we only need the total time and we do not need an agenda for an unmoderated caucus.
Sorry. Total time 15 minutes and individual time 60 seconds.
All right. Delegate of China.
The delegate of China would like to raise a moderated caucus on the topic impact of COVID-19 and its ill effect on the globe. Time parameters 15:1.
All right. Individual speakers time, could you repeat?
Yes, total time 15 minutes and individual speaker's time is 1 minute.
Great. All right. So we have three motions. We will first vote on the motion proposed by the delegate of Congo for an unmoderated caucus for total time being 15 minutes. Delegates in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. Delegates against? All right. I would request every delegate to please participate in the voting, either for the motion or against the motion, but we would like to see your vote. Okay, so this motion fails. Delegate of India has also proposed the same motion. So we will not take that into account. Delegate, the motion is a moderated caucus for on the agenda impact of COVID-19 and its ill effects on the globe for total time period 15 minutes and individual speakers time 1 minute. Delegates who are voting in favor of the motion, please raise your hand.
Can you please repeat the topic, please?
Yes, the agenda is impact of COVID-19 and its ill effects on the globe. Is that right, Delegate of China?
Yes, ma'am, it's right.
Correct. All right. Okay. Delegates against this motion, please raise your hand. Okay. So this motion passes. The committee will now be discussing the agenda, the impact of COVID-19 and its ill effects on the globe for a total time of 15 minutes. Delegates wishing to speak in this moderated caucus, please raise your hand.
Sorry, can you tell the agenda again?
The agenda is impact of COVID-19 and its ill effects on the globe. Delegate of China, would you like to speak first or at the end?
For first, Your Honor.
Perfect.
Chair, when will
Yes.
be the break? When will be the break?
Delegate, we only are left with around 45 minutes in the committee. So do we feel that we need a break? If the delegates are in majority, I think we can have a break of, let's say, 10 minutes. Wait, I'll just note down the names for the moderated caucus and then we can have a voting on the break. I think that would be cool.
Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you. All right. So the delegates who have been recognized are the delegate of China, UAE, Vietnam, Slovenia, Saudi Arabia, Argentina, Denmark, Philippines, Australia, Pakistan, Congo, Brazil, USA, and Qatar. Have I missed anybody? I don't think so.
India.
Uh,
India.
Delegates, India. Perfect.
Excuse me.
Uh,
Russia
so
also
delegates,
wants
now
to
you may
speak.
lower your hands. Hmm.
Russia delegates also want to
All right.
speak.
All right, delegate.
Your Honor,
Noted.
was the delegate of Thailand was
Hmm.
included on the list?
Uh, mhm. The delegate of Thailand was not included. Delegates, the total time is 15 minutes and the individual speaker's time is 1 minute. So technically, I should be recognizing only 15 delegates. However, I will be adding Thailand. We now have a total of 17 delegates. Anybody else who wishes to speak?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Chair, can we do it after the break, the moderator caucus?
Yes, delegate. Just a second. I would now ask everybody in the committee that do we need a break for, let's say, 10 minutes? Everybody in favor of the break, please raise your hand. All right, I think we have a majority. In that case, we'll take a break for the next 10 minutes. I would like to see everyone back in the next 10 minutes. Thank you, delegate.
Thank you.
Delegates, all of you are requested to not leave the meeting, please. However, you can switch off your cameras and take a break for the next 10 minutes. Thank you.
Delegates, before we proceed, the agenda is impact of COVID-19 and its ill effects on the globe. I would request all the speakers in this moderated caucus to cover some more aspects. For example, maybe the economic situation. And because this is most probably the last moderated caucus, I would also request the delegates to provide certain solutions for the future too in this speech. Thank you. And now we shall start with the moderated quiz. The first speaker is the delegate of China. Delegate of China, you may start.
COVID-19 caught us all off guard in one way or another. As the pandemic affected us all, it became indisputably clear that we all are united against this viral cause. COVID-19 severely affected the global economy. Stock market of 2020 crashed. It gave rise to 2021 to 2022 global supply chain crisis, energy crisis, and 2022 food crisis. On the other hand, and as our friend from Brazil has already mentioned, that mental health of people around the globe was the next target. A 25% increase in anxiety and depression was observed globally. Domestic abuse and suicidal rate among students was record-breaking. Speaking of students, education sector was totally disrupted. On total, 67.6% of students globally were affected, and approximately 143 countries were forced to switch their learning modes to virtual learning platforms, which counts 210 million students from China. Even though the rate of the pandemic is declining to some extent, we are still not able to adopt the effects of this disaster. And it is only possible when we all work together. Think about one another and work with WHO, because if any pandemic occur in future, it will affect us all equally, regardless of our rivalries or friendship. Thank you so much.
Thank you, delegate. Next up is the delegate of UAE. Delegate, you are not audible. Is anybody able to hear the delegate of UAE? Is it a problem on my end?
Hello.
Yes,
Hello.
delegate, you're audible now. You may please start with your speech.
Okay. The pandemic has triggered severe social and economical disruptions worldwide. Lockdown saw an unpredictable pollution decrease, but the lockdown saw an unpredictable pollution decrease. Many educational institutes and public areas were partially or fully closed, and many events were cancelled or postponed. As a job of the WHO, the as a job of UAE and WHO, we had to go on lockdown, and over 2 million people were 2 million students were affected because of this. There's loss of employment and lives. Thanks.
Thank you, delegate. Next up is the delegate of Vietnam. Delegate of Vietnam, it's your turn to take the speech. Okay, we'll move on to the next delegate by that time. Delegate of Slovenia. Do we have the delegate of Slovenia here?
Chair, the delegate of Slovenia is present in the meeting.
All right. Delegate of Slovenia, you may please speak. Delegate of Slovenia. Do we have the delegate of Vietnam here?
Chair, the delegate of Vietnam is not
All
present in the meeting. No, he's
Delegate
there.
of
all right.
Vietnam is present. Delegate
He's
of
there.
Vietnam
Sorry,
is
so sorry
present.
for the confusion.
I think there is some network issue on both their ends. I would move on to the next speaker. We'll come back to them. The delegate of Saudi Arabia. Delegate of Saudi Arabia.
Oh, sorry, miss. Apparently my mic was muted. I shall continue.
No issues. You may start with your speech.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are.
Okay. COVID-19 has been detrimental to the world, not just health-wise, but also financially. The lockdown, import and export restrictions, international flight lockdown, all affected the livelihoods of many people. It closed many small businesses which families relied on for sustenance, negatively impacted the education of students all across the world. General well-being and mental health decreased since the pandemic. All of this massively affected the globe. Many countries are still suffering from the impact caused by the pandemic. For example, the UK is currently going through an economic crisis. The main reason for this is the unforeseen events that took place because of the pandemic. Brexit, which was the withdrawal of the UK from the European Union, had been planned very carefully. If executed successfully in a decade or so, the country would regain all their losses caused by the event and grow their economy even more than before. Unfortunately, COVID-19 put a wrench in their plans, and as a result of that, it is going through its current economic crisis. This is just one of the many countries that are still facing the damaging effects of the pandemic. That's all.
Thank you, Delegate of Argentina.
Ma'am, give me a second.
Sure.
Am I audible?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So before moving on to the speech, I would first like to address the allegation from the delegate of UAE, the fact that AI is not very effective in this process. So on the understand the fact that the US government itself has implemented and proposed the use of artificial intelligence in state surveillance. And delegate kindly understand that artificial intelligence is only just a method of, making this a whole collecting of data and making it into information to take solid decisions more effective, right? So that allegation is taken down. So now moving on to the speech where the impact of pandemic on health facilities worldwide. So, honorable delegates of this House, as the WHO, our mandate, going through our mandate, we can categorize the impacts on major causes such as the social impact, cultural and religious impact, environmental and mental and physical impact. Right. So, generalizing these, we can identify that people of all ages are affected by the pandemic. Moving closely with the most recent COVID-19, according to the World Bank, the global economy was recessed by 5.2% in just 2020. But delegates, we have to understand that this is just an average percentage of all developed, developing, and low economically developed countries, right? So, for example, the pandemic hit hard on the African oil exporting countries. Also, it sparked a food security crisis in Africa, with the agriculture production potentially contracting with the presence of trade blockages. So eventually, an economic crisis will indirectly result in the low budget allocations for healthcare. Even now, it's reported that countries spend only an average of 2% of their health budgets on mental health. So delegates, the WHO in collaboration with the IMF and other willing and able nations must work in hand to utilize these global healthcare systems. And again, summing up the solutions that have been going through the committee since the start of the debate. So firstly, delegate would like to state that adhering and modifying the already present frameworks. And secondly, creating a transparent body where all data of the distribution of aid, the humanitarian aid worldwide is stored. And thirdly, ensuring social and economic security of nations. And fourthly, seeking a multi-sectoral expert perspective in preparing protocols. Fifth is uniting both the human and animal outbreak management databases to proceed with productive decisions. And sixth, monitoring the acts of surveillance and sequencing in national and global range with the use of artificial intelligence. So, honorable delegates, understand the fact that we're only talking about, in most of the pandemics, we're only focusing on either the very developed or the most low economical developed countries. But we are in the same stage when a pandemic occurs. So economic downfalls, social stigma, and all those things, they stick up in most of the countries, in literally every country. So let's pay our focus on marginalized groups and in religious minorities, right? So we haven't discussed that in the council so far. So the delegate of Argentina would like to point that out as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Delegate. Next up is the delegate of Denmark.
The delegate of Denmark feels that the COVID-19 pandemic had a significant impact on both the economy and the citizens' health worldwide. Due to the fact that the pandemic that we went through has been unexpected, its damages on global scale has been grandiose and destructive. The delegate considers that the most significant impact of COVID-19 remains the emotional health and well-being one. Measures such as self-isolation and quarantine have affected usual activities, routines, and livelihoods of people that may lead to an increase in loneliness, anxiety, depression, insomnia, harmful alcohol and drug use, and self-harm and suicidal behavior. The lockdowns around the world have led to an increase in cases of domestic violence, where women and children who live with domestic violence have no escape from their abusers during quarantine and therefore they suffer from a great mental damage. Therefore, the delegates feel that the greatest impact of COVID-19 had been on the citizens' mental health and advises the population to check their emotional well-being and to protect themselves on psychological scale, and the government to be aware of similar signs.
Thank you, Delegate. Next up is the Delegate of Philippines.
Present. Thank you for the recognition. The COVID-19 pandemic affects all segments of the population and is particularly detrimental to members of those social groups in the most vulnerable situations. Continues to affect population including people living in poverty situations, older person with disabilities, youth and indigenous people. COVID-19 pandemic leads to a dramatic loss of human life worldwide and present an unprecedented challenge to public health food system lead to disruption of food system impacting both the supply and demand of food. Public health intervention, especially social, pandemic increased global food insecurity in almost every country by reducing incomes and disrupting food supply. Chains condition worsened worldwide. The pandemic continues to create devastating effects on global hunger and poverty, especially on the poorest and most vulnerable population. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Next up is the Delegate of Australia.
Thank you for the recognition. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused a shocking loss of life on a global scale and poses an unprecedented threat to food system, public health, and the workplace. The pandemic has had a devastating impact on the economy and society. Tens of millions of people face the possible of living in abject poverty, and the number of undernourished people, which is currently estimated to be close to 690 people, could rise by as many as 132 million by the end of the year. Businesses are in danger of dying out. Many people are unable to feed themselves and their families during lockdowns because they have the lack of means to earn a living. For most people, no income means no food, or at best, less food that is less nutritious. Now is the time for a global solidarity and support, particularly for the most vulnerable members of our societies, particularly in the emerging and developing worlds. Only by working together we overcome the pandemic intertwined health, social, and economic impacts and prevent it from escalating into a protracted humanitarian and food security disaster, potentially wiping out preciously achieved development gains. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Next up is the Delegate of Pakistan.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
COVID-19 not only poses serious threats to physical health but also presents negative impacts on the social, psychological, and mental health of the population. In Pakistan, we saw people having trouble right after the lockdown. People pass their time doing all the activities. But some of the people feel like they're abandoned and can't do anything. So they were not mentally stable and were not hopeful in Pakistan. In Pakistan, we saw positive and negative after effects. Positive effects, we saw people spending time with their family more and doing indoor activities, and expenses were decreased. Besides positive effects, there were also negative effects. We saw economical loss, mentally not stable. People's daily routine was disturbed and screen time was increased, which is totally unhealthy for youth. I would like to suggest people to reduce their screen time and try to spend more time at home so that people would be less affected, less routine will not be disturbed. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Next up is the Delegate from Republic of Congo.
Thank you for the recognition. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am.
The COVID-19 pandemic has led to a dramatic loss of human life worldwide. And presents an a challenge to public health, food systems, and the world of work. The economic the economic and social disruption caused by the pandemic is devastating. Tens of millions of people are at risk of falling into extreme poverty, while the number of unnourished people, currently estimated at nearly 690 million, could increase by up to 132 million by the end of the year. Millions of enterprises face a threat. Nearly half of the world's population workforce are at risk of losing their livelihood. So, these are some of the healthcare solutions the delegate of the Democratic Republic of Congo would like to present. Firstly, provide support to national authorities and facilitate assessment of the extent of human to human transmission on site evaluation, coordinate collection and testing of specimens and strains to develop diagnostic regions, prototype vaccines and antiviral medicines, coordinate with national authorities to monitor containment measures, encourage international assistance to resource poor countries and seriously affected countries, interact with international organizations and agencies inside and outside of the health sector to coordinate interventions. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Next up is the delegate of Brazil.
Thank you, Chair, for the recognition. So, COVID-19 had various impacts on various fields, such as education, economy,
I'm not able to hear or see the delegate now.
The delegate of Brazil, I feel, is facing some network issues. Could the OC member please check if there's anything in the chat box?
I have not received any text in the chat box, but I'll just try and contact the delegate or through the Telegram chat, and I'll just confirm.
Sure.
Am I audible now?
Yes, delegate, you're audible now. You may start from the very beginning.
Okay. So COVID-19 had various impacts on various fields such as education, economy, mental health, and etc. But according to us, the delegation of Brazil, the most important effects were at the economical side, because COVID-19 catch the governments off guard. What we mean by that is that governments were not ready for such disasters, so they didn't have the required funds to provide the best healthcare systems and the other services for their citizens. So for future pandemics such as COVID-19, governments need to provide fundings to laterally use in those pandemics, so that they weren't be catched that much steps, as we as the delegation of Brazil encourage the countries to take on responsibility. Every country should make room for funds to use in case of a pandemic in order to prevent such disasters in the future. And also, these economical effects led to mass layoffs and unemployment rates. Artists across the world were so unemployed that the suicide rates on the artists were so high. Artists were forced to suicide because they were so poor. We, as a delegation of Brazil, took on responsibility during the COVID-19 process as much as possible in every aspect. For instance, we invested 2.8 billion Brazilian reals for the purchase of emergency health items. We spent 1.6 million Brazilian reals to enable 11,827 ICU beds across the country. We had an extraordinary credit for 2 billion Brazilian reals for the purchase of and the production of vaccines against COVID-19. And also, unemployment rates in Brazil weren't fluctuant and didn't get affected as bad as the rest of the world. We are sharing this data to show the House that with taking the right steps and providing funds, the impacts of COVID-19 can be lowered to the minimum. So we are encouraging the House to taking responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. I would just like to add something here for future conferences, that the time limit for every individual speaker has been decided for 1 minute, and it would be great if the delegates could adhere to that. Moving on, we would now like the delegate of USA to please make their speech.
Thank you for your recognition. First, we would like to address our speech to the delegation of Argentina. We understand the need of artificial intelligence in all countries, and we are aware of the need of the recording data in the pandemic areas, but we are also aware of the cost of artificial intelligence. And since we have got only limited sources, we should prioritize our needs. And as United States, we believe that improvement of health facilities comes first, and it is more important than the artificial intelligence in the pandemic areas. That's it. During the COVID-19, it showed us pandemic affects people in terms of mental health, social life, and education, but most importantly, pandemics affect states in terms of economy. As a result of economic harm, now millions of people are in risk to fall in extreme poverty. Moreover, COVID-19 increasing the number of undernourished people by 132 million. Also, economic effects of pandemic caused a great unemployment. As international community, we should heal the economic wounds of states. As a first step, we believe that all nations should aid equivalent today with 0.01 of states' gross domestic product. We strongly believe that all countries will aid into this fund, equivalent to 1.01 to their GDP. We think that economical aspect is the pandemic is the most important aspect, since economical aspects strongly correlates with the protection of basic human rights like access to healthy food. Whenever, as United States, we think that whenever we heal the economic ones, we will able to solve the social, educational, mental, and other aspects of the pandemics. As we previously mentioned, local and personal quarantines will gradually help once in social and economical aspects of pandemic. We believe that national quarantines cause the bad affection of the mental health, social life, and education. So we believe that personal and local quarantines will heal the other aspects of the pandemics and epidemics. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Delegate. Next up is the Speaker of Qatar.
Greetings, honorable chairs and other delegates. So the COVID-19 pandemic has brought enormous change to people's lives around the globe. For instance, in the economy, many countries' restrictive measures have resulted in shifts and fluctuations in international trade, finance, and investment. On education, most governments worldwide have closed schools at all levels as part of the lockdown efforts to curtail the spread of the virus. This has affected the formal education sector with 143 countries enforcing a countrywide school closure. Mental health is also a serious issue. Local healthcare providers in Qatar indicated an increase in burnout and anxiety cases among the medical workforce due to extended hours and the lack of knowledge of the virus. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Next up is the Delegate of Russia.
Hello there. The COVID-19 pandemic hit every
Delegate of Russia, you're on mute.
Delegate of Russia, are you willing to speak? All right, due to a lack of time, we'll move forward. Delegate of India, you may please start.
Thank you, the Executive Board, for the recognition. The toll the COVID-19 pandemic has exacted on the global economy has been significant, with the International Monetary Fund estimating the median global GDP dropped by 3.9% from 2019 to 2020, making it the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. The COVID-19 pandemic also resulted in a lot of unemployment. In the early months of the crisis, tens of millions of people lost their jobs. While employment began to rebound within a few months, unemployment remained very high throughout the year of 2020. While COVID-19 had many downsides, the lockdown had some good sides too. People got quality time to spend with their family, and also there was a boon in the tech industry. There's difference between the technological advancement of a country and the accessibility of the technology to the citizens. And through this COVID time, the accessibility of this technology to the citizens, whether it's of the upper limit like the old age or the middle aged people, that has increased by a lot because all the people have shifted to online modes. And also, in the starting periods of the lockdown, people were getting isolated and bored at home because they did not really have any work. Offices were shut down and schools were also shut down. But as time went through, everything shifted online, and then they got busy in their jobs and schools again. So next time, I think, God forbid if a lockdown occurs, I don't wish if any pandemic should come, but if it occurs, next time I don't think this issue will come of people getting isolated at homes because immediately everything can be shifted to online as now platforms have been developed seeing through the COVID lockdown. That's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Next up is the Delegate of Thailand.
Yes, thank you for the recognition, Yamuna. So, when we're talking about the impacts of COVID-19 and its ill effects on the globe, Delegate of Thailand have four sectors in a speech as social, A, social, B, health, C, education, and D as economy. So, talking about society. So, society has a huge breakdown during the COVID-19 pandemic as interpersonal relationship had a main breakdown and a negative impact because of the lockdowns and whatnot. So when considering about that, society was the main subject which had the most ill effects in the globe and which drive to the most dangerous effects that is students and the youth had in the present society. So B being health, as I mentioned in A society, A, mental health also had this impact of breakdown of interpersonal relationships and whatnot. And B, being physical health, it was also because of the lockdowns, because people had to be in their living places and to face all the and face all the negative impact. Other students had to go through the negative impact of the mental health because of the remote education and whatnot. And even the delegates country Thailand, half of the number of students in the country who are currently educating had to go through the remote education, which made them to go through the ill effects of mental health and some sort of depression and whatnot. So D, being the economy, the most important category that had the worst impact of the COVID-19, had all these medical supplies and PEP and the drugs and everything. Because of those, they had to go through the economy of most of the countries, especially uh, that it will cost almost 52 billion US dollars for 4 weeks in low to middle income countries just to provide successful care for COVID-19, made these ill effects. Okay, wait. Joanna, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are.
Okay. I'll continue my speech. Okay.
Delegate, you have exceeded the time limit. Also, due to the time constraint, we'll move on with the next speaker.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Sorry. May I ask a question?
Yes, delegate.
Okay, as I'm a delegate from Russia too, my friends, I don't know what's going wrong with him, but maybe because of bad internet connection. So can I speak on this topic after all other delegates?
Actually, delegate, due to the time
Delegate, there was some network. Yeah, there was some network issue on your end. We could hear you partially. Secondly, we have a time constraint. We will only be able to accommodate one more delegate, and that is the delegate of Turkey.
Okay, thank you.
Delegate of Turkey, you may please speak. Is the delegate of Turkey present here? If not, we will have to close the session. All right. Delegate of Turkey. All right. So I guess we do not have time for any more speakers, and some of them are not able to speak, I guess. So with that, I would like to thank everyone's presence in this committee, and I would request everybody to please join the closing ceremony immediately. Thank you so much.
Thank you, delegate.
Delegates and respected chair, before leaving the meeting, I would request everyone to turn on their camera for the final pick of the committee. Delegates, you all are requested to kindly turn on your camera. Thank you so much, Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. The link for the closing ceremony has been sent in the Telegram group. I shall also be sharing it in the chat box for your convenience to join the closing ceremony.
So, Chair, has the committee session ended? So, like, should we move on with the closing ceremony?
Yes, delegate, the committee has been adjourned. You can move on with the closing ceremony. The link for the same has been shared in the chat box.
Okay, right, thank you.
All the delegates are requested to leave the committee meeting and join on with the closing ceremony.
We all can leave this meeting, right? Okay, right.